This is what the average MPO tournament round looks like. This is round 3 of the Sarasota Championship in Florida. We're at Tom Bennett Park. Now this is actually only my second full round here, but one thing I want to mention is they have like a driving range area, which is very cool, and I threw a couple backhands, and for some reason the outside of my elbow, I must have strained it or something. But basically what I'm trying to say is I will be throwing no backhands this round. Even though I mainly throw sidearm, there are going to be a few times where we want to throw backhand. Anyways, hole 1, the first person already threw, and I'm going to go off the PDGA live for the distances. So hole 1 is 598 feet, and there's a mandatory on the right side. It's probably about 310 feet away. You have to go left of it, which kind of limits your options considering this is a boomerang type shape of a hole. And the only way to really attack for 2 would be, I would say, a backhand roller, because it would be really hard to get there with anything else. So one more thing I forgot to mention is there's OB long. You don't really want to throw as straight as you can. You definitely want something going right. I'm throwing my star max here. I get a nice skip. And you can see this competitor is right next to that Mando, so he's pretty pinched off. And it's honestly not the farthest hole ever. Doesn't feel that far, but this is definitely one of those ones where you just have to place it in the right spot. Second throw, I go with my Extreme, Elite X Extreme, which just hits the ground and stays there. So this is for birdie right here. And I start off with a nice birdie. We're at -1. Hole 2, 223 feet. This one is pretty unique. Circle 1 is actually the island that's inbounds. Anything short or long is actually OB, and you have to go to a drop zone. Or actually, I think it is you just bring it into the circle. I can't remember which one it is, but I was pretty close, and we hit a 2. Now we're on to hole 3, which according to the PDGA Live says 402 feet. The sign says 395. But essentially this one is slightly downhill. There's OB on the right. You can kind of see those white flags. So you can't really throw like a really safe shot out to the right. You have to throw straight. I'm going with my Star Max. We got a lot of wind here, and it's turning over my Star Max. That's how much wind is out here. Now I only throw about like 345, 350. I didn't try to throw that hard. Like I said, my elbow is kind of like strained right now. For some reason sidearm's not so bad, but decent low layup, and this is one of those things that just happens in tournament rounds. I'm not sure why. Could have definitely avoided that, but we took a 4. So right now I'm sitting at -1, which isn't too bad with a bogey after a couple holes. It's not too bad. So now we're on hole 4, 325 feet. The sign says 322. Now I am still feeling that wind. This is kind of a headwind, so I thought my disc was going to flip over. And I threw just a little bit errant there, a little bit hyzer, a little bit nose up, my T-bird 3, and we ended up going right. So there's an elevated pin, lots of wind, and I didn't want to mess with it. For some reason it was kind of rolling away, but it was kind of like a nervy tap-in. It was a pretty easy tap-in. Now we're on to hole 5, 512 feet, par 3, but the sign says par 4. Now, I throw like 80% here. For some reason, in Florida, the discs just go so much farther. Like, I didn't throw that as hard as I could. In round 1, I went backhand, and I ended up missing the Mando. So there was a Mando on the right, if you're wondering why I threw so far left. You just don't want to be anywhere near the Mando. And I have a really great upshot here. This is basically like right at the pin. I think I actually hit the branches, otherwise it may have drawn some metal. So, according to PDGA Live, I'm putting for par, but the sign says I'm putting for birdie. And nice 3 there. That's definitely one you want to get for sure. Now we're on to hole 6, 313 feet. This is one of those must-gets. But there is danger behind the basket. So you'll see when we walk up, there's 2 fences. There's a black one and a wooden one. And there's also that road. Everything beyond the fence or the road is OB. And basically, this is one that you want to get. I didn't have the best drive. It was kind of like a soft tee shot with my T-bird 3. And I thought I was going to hit the putt, but now we're moving on to hole 7, so I just took a 3 there. 761 feet. I think the sign says 801. This is one of those just placement. You should get a 3. I mean, there's some wind out there, but this isn't too hard. The ceiling makes it so you can't go super huge. Now, my shot was fine, but I threw it a little bit too straight, and I was actually trapped next to that tree. Like, I had to go on a knee. We missed the shot. Something happened with the camera, but this is for 3 right now, and I don't want anything to do with a bogey. So I'm just kind of laying up. I decided to go with a backhand jump putt so it would hit the hill and just kind of stop. Now, I'm thinking about hole 3 where I missed. I'm like, okay, just throw down into the basket. Now we're on to hole 8, which is 759 according to PGA Live. Now, here's something. There's 2 Mandos. You have to go in between those 2 trees in the fairway. So I don't want anything to do with having a bad lie. I just throw it right in the middle. I don't want to miss the Mando. The first round I was too close to that arrow on the right. I guess I misjudged. I threw it a little bit too far the first round. So this round I was like, nope, just be safe. And I wasn't feeling 1,000% yet, but I do have a really good shot here. Now this is kind of straight into the wind. It turned over my Excalibur. I threw it out to the right. Now I'm just laying up for a par. I mean, I am totally fine with that. This is one of those holes that you definitely want to be able to attack for birdie, but my elbow was hurting and I just did not feel like I was going to do that. So here's hole 9. This is kind of a bonus or local type hole where you really want to throw that shot that you're seeing right there. You want to throw high into the trees. There are some low lines, so what I'm trying to do is there's kind of like this line on the left side for sidearm, and I was thinking about it, and I accidentally turned it over into that route. So I was actually kind of trying to go straight at the basket, but I ended up kind of hitting that secret route. So I'm left of this disc, and this is a decent putt. This is about, like, I would say 55 feet, and he's putting for 2 right now. This is a bonus 2 on this course. This is one of those weird, not super far holes, but it's definitely a bonus because it's so wacky to get in there. So he hits the 2. I'm telling myself I don't want to get big putted right here. And for some reason I'm feeling confident, and I happen to hit it. So we both get a 2. The other guy ends up getting a 3. Now we're on to hole 10, which is 582 feet. This is definitely a shank. Now this hole is deceiving because you're like, oh, it's probably a crush straight out there. But it's actually like another boomerang hole. So this short pad, that's where you want to lay up.
Perfect.
You want to get to that short pad off the tee. Because now the hole is like straight ahead from where I'm at. Now this left side, that shrubbery, it's hard to tell, but it's super high. I can't throw like a hyzer here, even though the hyzer is definitely more open. I'd have to throw really high. So I kind of go for a turnover, and unfortunately it bounces off a tree. So now I'm putting for par. And just a little bit off. It didn't feel like my putting was that bad on that hole, so I took a bogey there. And now we're on to hole 11, which is 413 feet. There's a Mando right off the tee. This hole is way to the right. So I'm trying to pitch through these trees, and I go a bit far. I definitely go a bit far. I did not really mean to do that, but it's not really open through those trees. You have to, hit a line. It's not free to get a 3 through there. So unfortunately I hit the band and I took another 4. So that unfortunately puts me, I think, at even according to PDGA Live. So right now I'm about even. So we're at hole 12. This is 327 double Mando, pretty much off the tee. You can see that first sign. And there's a straight headwind. Now the first round I actually parked this with the T-Bird 3. And I wasn't thinking too much. I could have definitely, threw a more stable disc. But I ended up getting the 3. That's kind of what I was just worried about. Like, as soon as the wind starts picking up, you just want to get a 3, maybe a chance for birdie. So this is hole 13, 753 feet. There's 2 Mandos on this hole. There's one, like, right away on the right side, and then there's one later on the right side. So basically, you have to just go left or down the middle, or you go right super early. The wind is really messing with the discs right now. This is one of those scary holes. So I took my Star Max, and I'm like, just throw like to the edge of the water, and it's turning over my Star Max. You see how much wind is out there? My Star Max is turning over, but luckily it hit and skipped inbound. So not only did I get my disc, but I'm inbound. So I'm thinking with all this wind, like, if it turned over my Star Max, why don't I just try to turn it over again? And I forgot, okay, this is actually a stable disc. That's not going to happen. So, not the greatest second shot. Now, this is kind of my layup for par. And I was a little bit left. But I threw my extreme, which is overstable, and I ended up pretty close. Now, I have not a headwind. I kind of have like a left to right wind. So, I was pretty confident that I could make it. So, I got a par there. Now moving on to hole 14, 313 feet. This is kind of one of those ones that you definitely want to get, and I threw it a little bit soft. I was a little bit early, but we ended up pin high. I don't have a turbo putt, so I went for a backhand kind of like a layup. I'm like, let's just, go to the next hole. That's kind of what I was thinking. Now we're into hole 15, which is kind of a little bit pressure. It says 350 on the sign, says 339 on PDGA Live. This is over the water. If you miss, you have to go to the drop zone. So I'm throwing my Monster L, which honestly feels like a Thunderbird to me. So I'm just trying to get safe. Nice. Both rounds I got safe here. And this is just one of those putts where maybe I should have taken another second. I was feeling confident, but just a little bit off. I could have lined up a little bit more. But anyways, now we're moving on to hole 16. It says 390 on PDGA Live. It does not feel like 390. It feels like 350. I'm throwing the same disc I threw in the last hole. And there's a bunch of wind, so I'm like, okay, this thing's going to turn over a little bit. I threw a little bit too nose up and a little bit too high there. So this is pretty safe. Now, I took the same disc and I went for like a jump putt layup. And I grip locked it straight right into there. Now I have like nothing. These like leaves or palm fronds are impossible to putt through, so I was throwing it through the tree and I basically hit the band. We kind of missed that, but I ended up getting a bogey here, so not great. So now I am +1. Now hole 17, 279 feet. There's a Mando to the right. Honestly, this is probably where you should throw a tomahawk, but the stuff right next to the tee pad kind of prevents that. This is kind of like a local type shot. This is a weird one. You want to throw really low or like just hit a gap. Now, I was going for the roller. I think the roller is the play on this hole for sure. I hit like a root off my tee shot, but then my recovery shot, my second shot, was actually quite good. Now, I have this to save my par, and it feels like I'm just struggling on this less than 300-foot hole. But this is one of those ones that just gets strokes from people because it's just such a weird little hole. So now we're on hole 18. This one is 413 feet according to the PDGA, but the sign says 418. Now you have a choice to make. If you want to go for the basket, you have a chance for 2, but obviously the water is right there. Now we have a left to right tailwind, which is great for basically almost every shot out there. The only shot that kind of sucks is the backhand hyzer because it's trying to push it down. So I think to the front edge of the green, I didn't measure it off, but it feels more like 375 to 380. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. Round 1, I got it all the way there, so I'm throwing my Star Wraith here. And I'm just like, alright, let's just go for it. Try to get another stroke. But also, it feels like the safe play. I can just throw straight at the basket and try and get close. This was kind of like a 75 to 80% power. Like, I'm still kind of feeling my elbow, but luckily I clear it, and the wind was extremely strong here. I decide, okay, just lay up. Because if I threw a turbo and it missed, I could roll into the water. It kind of slopes off from that basket. But anyways, guys, that was kind of how an average MPO tournament round goes. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like.